Boker Tov, Birshutchem. Continuing with Halachot Shabbat, Maaseh Shabbat, first perek, Halachot Bishul. So today is the Isur of Hagasa. So last time we spoke about Hosafat Bishul Achar Shenit Bashel Kemacha Medursai, adding more cooking after it was cooked until Ben Macha Ben Dursai. We spoke about speeding up its cooking process. We spoke about when you put the lid back on, if it's not fully cooked. These are all possible issues that exist. Now is the issue Isur of Hagasa. We'll read the Halacha and we'll explain after also. Kedera shelo nitbashel kol tzorka asur leotzi mimena bekaf afilu im ena omedet al gabe ha'esh kol zeman shayat solelet bo. A pot that was not fully cooked, it is forbidden to take any food out of it with a spoon or a ladle. Afilu imon ena omedet al gabe ha'esh, even if it's not sitting on the fire anymore. Kol zeman shayat solelet bo, as long as it's still yat solelet bo, we call it boiling. What? Good question. Why? But let's explain why. Shenimtza megis vehamegis chayav mishum mevashel. This is the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Shin Melechet. Again, Hilchot Shabbat is Chelek Gimel of Mishnah Berurah. Siman Shin Melechet is the Siman about Bishul. Many Seifim. Seif Yudchet talks about the issue of stirring the pot. Megis. U'v'mayim ein isur hagasa. Wow. In the footnote they explain that with water, let's say you have an urn, okay? Boiling plain water, there's no isur of hagasa, of stirring the pot with that. Interesting halacha, good to note, but we'll continue, okay? Ve'im hi mevushelet kol tzorka ve'oda ala esh asur la'agis ba aval mutar leotzi mimena bekaf. Now these are the big machlokot, the big machlokot achronim. So we just spoke about there's three scenarios. There's a pot on the fire, not fully cooked. Okay? There's a pot off the fire, still yat solerebo, not fully cooked. Both those scenarios, asur lehagis. It's forbidden to stir in the pot, because think about it, when you make a bowl of pasta, you're always mixing the pasta around so it gets evenly distributed, the heat. When you're making chulin, you're often going to stir the pot so all the meat and the potatoes, they mix up and they get evenly heat distribution. That's part of the process to stir the pot. When you stir the pot, it's speeding up its cooking, which is why we're talking about it in these halachot. You're hurrying the process of cooking, which is the isur deoraita of bishul if it's not yet cooked. That's category one, everyone agrees. What about category number two? Category number two is it's already fully cooked, okay, but it's still on the fire. If it's still on the fire, it's a big machlokes rishonim. We'll explain the opinions quickly. According to what it sounds like in the Bet Yosef, at the end of Siman Shin Kaf Aleph, and the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Shin Yudchet, even if it's fully cooked, as long as it's still on the fire, it's still asur to stir it on the fire. Why? Meaning, so good question. What's the isur? Probably not bishul, but velo share lagis ela im husra kedera min ha'esh v'nibashol hatavshil kol tzorko. According to the Shulchan Aruch simple understanding, you're only allowed to stir in the pot if it's removed from the fire and fully cooked. Ayin berambam Hilchot Shabbat perek gimel b'Shabbat halacha yud aleph. דמובן שכשהתבשיל מבושל כל צורכו, אף שהוא עומד על האש, אין בזה איסור דאורייתא. So your question is איסור דאורייתא. So according to the Rambam, and in the Nosei Kelim on the Rambam, if it's fully cooked, even if it's still on the fire, it's not isur deoraita. Okay?
If you take it off, you can't put it back on, right?
So we'll get there. I don't want to confuse things. That's the next topic. So we explained, raw or not yet fully cooked, on the fire or off the fire, still boiling, you can't do hagasa because that's bishul. Fully cooked on the fire, according to Maran, you shouldn't stir, but I'm allowed to remove food from it. That's the big chidush. I can take my ladle in the chulin that's fully cooked and take it out. Now, according to the Maran, that I shouldn't stir the pot on the fire, that's only nisur derabanan according to the Rambam. Good? Answer your question.
Scooping is kind of like stirring.
So that's the discussion with scooping. Aval mutar leutzi menu bekaf. But the halacha is you're allowed to remove from the pot with a spoon. Okay? And that's based on the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Kanan Kuf Yud Gimel, in the opinion of the Bet Yosef. However, you should know that the Ashkenazim are strict. The Mishnah Berurah himself is strict, like the kolbo, that's Isur Deoraita. So he himself, you can't remove from a pot that's on the fire, even if it's fully cooked. Good? Now, all of these, it's important to clarify, when we say fire, how does a plata apply to this? So very good. We're getting into that. We're going to get into that stuff later on. But just for the halacha l'maaseh, according to Rav Ovadia Yosef, it's not considered a fire. So on the plata itself, it might not be considered like ala esh. What?
It makes everything so confusing.
Of course, it makes everything confusing because we don't use open fires. But according to Rabbi Bishul and others in Ashkenazim, the plata might still be considered like a fire. We'll talk about that in due time. Good? But we'll continue with halacha. So in regards to negis, stirring the pot, very important. If it's raw, everyone agrees. Even on the plata, isur deoraita of bishul. Everyone agrees. Because you're speeding up its process, which we learned last time. Kiruv bishul is bishul deoraita. If it's fully cooked and on the fire, you shouldn't stir the pot. If it's fully cooked and off the fire, you can stir and you can do whatever you want. You good? Even if it's hot. Very good. Kiruv bishul b'mayim. What about speeding up the bishul process with water? Mayim she'adayin lo higiu lechom she'ayat zolet bahem. Water that's not yet arrived to Yad Solet bo, asur la'asot beShabbat shum pe'ula tagbir et chumam. I can't do anything to the water on Shabbat to enhance and elaborate and increase their temperature, the water's temperature. For example, kegon leosif kisui al gabei mecham. For if the water wasn't boiled yet, I can't put a towel on top of the urn because that insulates it and cooks it faster, boils the water faster. Or or, for example, I have a pot, a ladle on the plata or on the fire, and I accidentally opened the top before it was boiling. I can't close it anymore because when I close it, that's speeding up the bishul process. Kiruv bishul is bishul deoraita. Good? Similarly, it's forbidden to move the urn to a place that is warmer on your plata. It's not yet fully boiled, to move it to the middle where it's hotter, for example. If it's not yet boiled, you can't do that. To remove water from the urn, see down below in the footnote as well. So let's read that inside and learn about that. If the urn is on the fire and the water did not arrive to 80 degrees Celsius, at first glance it would seem like it would be asur to take water from the urn if it didn't get to 80 degrees Celsius yet. Because let's say I have 1 liter of water and I take out 200 milliliters. When there's less water, it'll boil faster, obviously. So in the Torah, that's Isur of Kiruv Bishul. Good?
So assuming like no issue with like the cover back on, back off.
Yeah, it's an urn. I'm just opening the lid. Yeah, it's an urn. It's a mecham.
Urn kettle, right?
Kettle also.
I think that like with a spoon from above.
No. Yeah,
so if you
just
boil
pouring.
the kettle before you can put
We'll
it
get
on
there.
Okay.
What do you mean? What does that mean, boiled?
Like to the point where it's like above the...
Oh, so once the kettle is boiled fully, then you can take it off your plata to pour if you're going to put it back right away on the fire, that it stays hot. You get it on the plata, not the fire. As long as it's still yatzoleh. Good?
Yeah.
That's a very good question, but we'll get there. Okay? Umiu, however, the author writes that perhaps in our case with the urn, we can be lenient. Why? Because at this point, if I have an urn with 1 liter, I take out 200 milliliters. There's 800 milliliters left of water left in the urn. The boiling I did to the urn is only a gram bishul. It's a grama. It's an indirect cooking. I didn't add heat. I didn't add water. Indirectly, I took water out, so now it's boiling faster. Indirectly, it wasn't a direct way. ודעת רוב פוסקים זה גרם בישול שרה אפילו בשלו במקום הפסד, כמו שדעת בישול יהיה באומר חלק י' סימן כ"ו. Rav Alia writes that according to most poskim, gram bishul, doing bishul in a indirect way, in a delayed way, which is a very important principle, is mutar. Is mutar.
We're gonna get into it.
We're gonna get into that for the shulent, for the choresh, all those halachot. Not reheating choresh, for example. Vayin beshut minchat Yitzchak chelek gimel. Okay, good. That is adif migram bishul. V'chashiv ze rak hasarat hamonea. Some say this is even better than gram bishul because hasarat hamonea is removing its cause, removing the thing that will cause it to boil. ועל כורח יש להתיר לכל לעלמא אף שלא במקום הפסד, משמע מדברי הרמב"ם, דבלה בהגסה, הרי זה שרה. Because according to the Rambam, if you're not literally stirring, it's mutar. So for many reasons, they permit in this scenario of taking water from an urn, it's mutar, even if it's going to boil the water that's remaining faster. Again, we're talking about water that was not yet boiled. If it was boiled already, there's no problem whatsoever. It's boiled water, it's fine. Good? Next. Avar ve'osif o kiruv bishul. Wow. Last seif in this topic of kiruv bishul. If someone accidentally was over the isur of bishul, quote unquote. If he accidentally adds water or speeds up the cooking process, what happens? Avar ve'osif o kiruv bishul b'machal acher shebashal shelish bishulo acher shebashal shelish bishulo. If I transgressed and I added more water or food, or I sped up the cooking process for a food that was already 1/3 cooked, or with water after it got to the minimum benchmark of Yatzul about 40 degrees Celsius, mutar bediavad lishamesh b'hem b'Shabbat. Bediavad, it's permitted to use it on Shabbat. That's the Mishnah Berurah Shinu Chesed Pela Kaf Zayin. Why? Desh lismoch ala poskim shesovrim dekevan shebashal kemacha ben drosai shuv en bazeh mishum bishul. Again, there's an issue with Maaseh Shabbat. What's Maaseh Shabbat? If someone does a melacha on Shabbat for me, I can't benefit from it. It's asur b'hana'ah. It's the first seif in Siman Shin Yud Chet. The beginning of Siman Shin Yud Shabbat. If someone violates Shabbat intentionally, with intent, knowingly, it's forbidden for him and for others to benefit from that item on Shabbat. Okay? How does this apply to that halacha? On one hand, he's doing a melacha. On the other hand, it was already cooked kemacha ben drosai. It was partially cooked. So if it's partially cooked, does it still have the severity of gram bishul of even mezid? Yeah.
Even if
This was mezid, for example. Yeah. So the halacha says that because it was already cooked until yatzul erebo or macha ben drusai, you can be lenient that what? That Maaseh Shabbat wouldn't forbid it. That if someone cooks it further or speeds up the cooking process, like closing the lid or stirring the pot, it's still mutar because it already achieved its bare minimum benchmark. It was already edible kemacha ben drosai, so it's not chayav. That's not the same as cooking raw food, which would be asur. Good? Chazak baruch. Next topic. Yeah, we have time, a few minutes. We'll do a little more. So the next topic they bring in is Gezerat Hapashar, Hefsher, I think. Okay. Beshabbat af Amud Bet. The Gemara Masechet Shabbat Ita. Mevi Adam Kiton Shel Mayim Menicho Keneged Madura. I can bring a jug of water, okay, and place it by the fire. Place it by my fireplace. Lo bishvil sheyichamu, not so the water gets hot. Ela bishvil shetafod sinatan. I want to break its coldness. Meaning, that's a play on words. It's so cold, I want to just make it less cold. I want to make it bearable. Not boiling, not hot. Just not freezing cold. The Gemara says you're allowed to do that.
Can you melt ice? Is that similar?
No, melting ice is different.
Very, very cold.
We spoke about ice, no? We spoke about kera. We spoke about heating up frozen ice, frozen challah. Challah kifua shesh al gabe kafur dak. Yesh shasutin miyayayeh. Shum bishul akerach v'sheitur bazeh. Some forbid boiling, heating up the frozen challah because you're boiling the ice. Some say it's mutar, and I think we permitted that you can do it because I don't want the ice to get boiled. But if you intend to boil ice, it might be a problem. This is cold water. I want it to be not as cold, like in the winter. In the winter, you don't use hot water in the house. It's freezing to wash your hands. You want it to be so cold. So the Gemara says. It's a Gemara. I'm allowed to take the water near a fire for it to get warm, not to boil, but for it not to be freezing cold.
It has to be near, not on.
We'll get all of these halachot. But with oil, ubashemen iflegu tanae. It's a machloket tanaim. With oil, it doesn't apply. But the tanaim argue with oil. The asikna, and they concluded echad shemen. Ve'echad mayim yad solet bo asur en yad solet bo mutar. And the Gemara Melechet Shabbat Daf Mem Bet concludes that both water and oil, if I boil it to above yad solet bo chayav, but if I warm it up to break its coldness below yad solet bo mutar.
Very dangerous.
Exactly, very dangerous. Umevuar shemutar lechamem davar ulhafshiro kol she'eno magia lechom sheyad zolet bo. Based on this, the logic dictates that it is permitted to boil or to heat up. I'm not going to say boil. I'm going to say heat up. It's mutar to heat up food and break its coldness, meaning warm it up, as long as it doesn't arrive to Yad Solet Bo. Good? Ulam, however, nichlekු harishonim ay mutar la'avshir gam b'mkom sheyad Solet Bo al dat lesalek hama'achal kodem sheyagia lechom Yad Solet Bo o shelo nemar hater ze ela b'manech ma'achal b'mkom sheoleh olam eno yachol lagia bo lechom Yad Solet Bo. There's a massive machloket rishonim. Okay, I get the Gemara. The Gemara says I'm allowed to do it, just don't let it get Yatzel Bo. You alluded to this question. Does that mean I'm allowed to put it on a fire that if I fell asleep, it will get to Yatzel Bo? And just be mindful to take it off? Or does it need to be in a place that it virtually cannot? It's impossible for it to arrive to Yad Solet Bo. What's the classic example? If I put it on the plata, it'll boil. If I put it near the plata or on top of pots that are on the plata, it won't boil. Do I have to put it on top of the pots that are on the plata, or can I put it on the plata and just quickly take it off? What do you think?
Let's put it on top of the pots.
My logic is because we said indirectly.
Good. That's a good way to think. So the Shulchan Aruch with Shabbat is often very strict. It's called Chumrah de Shabbat. So Udan Halacha pasak with Shulchan Aruch kedat machmirim. Maran posek like the Rashba, like the Ran, like the Tosfot, like the Rosh, and the Yerushalmi, and not like Rashi, the Rambam, and the Ramban. Rashi, Rambam, and Ramban say I can put it in a place that's hot, that's Yad Solet Bo. Just be careful to take it off before, because you're there. You trust yourself. You're going to take it off before it gets there. The Maran is posek like the Machmirim that say you can't because you might make a mistake, and then you're chayav bishul. Okay. The asur la'avshir ma'achal b'mekom sheyad Solet Bo af shebekavanato l'tolo misham kol sheyichamem shechayshinan shem yishkachenu ad sheyagia lechom Yad Solet Bo ve'yavor al isur bishul. Because we are concerned that you might forget it on that place and you'll be chayav the isur of bishul. This was an introduction of the gezerah of the rabbinic enactment to protect us from warming up water. Yani, you get it? We'll explain these two halachot tomorrow. Recap the intro and explain again tomorrow. But again, this is the essence of the machloket. Can I put it in a place that will become Yad Solet Bo, or can I not? And Maran is posek like the Machmirim that you shouldn't. We'll talk about specific nuances tomorrow, Be'ezrat Hashem, but Chazak Ubaruch.